Today's date is February the 8th, 2023, and our guest today is Sensei Fidyk. Sensei, please state your name and rank, please.
So my name's Fidyk. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, and my rank is Shichidan, 7th Dan.
And how many years have you been involved with martial arts?
This is my 37th year of being involved in the martial arts consistently.
And what is your martial arts background?
So in 1978, I was introduced to martial arts by a grade 7 teacher whose background was kind of in Kung Fu, but generally he just taught like generic striking and grappling. And then it wasn't until 1986 when I stepped foot into a Shintani dojo at the University of Alberta, and that's where I belonged to the Shintani organization ever since.
Nice. And what styles have you studied?
So in addition to Shintani karate, I studied traditional Wado when I lived in Japan in 92 and 93. And I studied a little bit from another Wado group under Tatsuo Suzuki. I've also studied techniques and kata from Shotokan, Shorin-ryu, Shito-ryu styles. And this was done to assist my athletes in with Karate Canada on the para team. And then I've done some different clinics with Bunkai, with Patrick McCarthy and Ian Abernathy.
Okay. I think you already covered it, but how did you get actually started in the martial arts?
So I'm going to just go to where I started at the University Club. I was introduced to the Shintani Club at the University of Alberta by two of my friends, Suzanne and Jennifer. They had started in September, and then I started in the February. They were extremely excited about both the activity and the people who were involved in the organization.
Okay. And what are your personal accomplishments related to martial arts?
Well, I have quite a few personal accomplishments related to karate. First of all, receiving my Shodan from Sensei Shintani, it was my black belt that really started my journey in karate. My next kind of personal accomplishments would be related to the Shintani team. In about 2004, Sensei Roger St. Arnaud organized the team to compete at a WKF tournament in Rabat, Morocco. The competition was really good. Well, I kind of put everything on the mat. I realized that there was a lot of work and there were some very, very skilled people out there. So still managed to come back home with a couple medals. The next personal accomplishment was when, again, related to the Shintani team, is when we went to Japan. I had organized Shintani team trips to Italy, Scotland, the US, and Ireland, but Japan was a highlight. It was the pinnacle. We competed at a Wado tournament in Fukuoka, and Sensei Dennis traveled with the team. The training in the tournament was something of, in my thoughts, it was something of a gift to the legacy of Hanshin Shintani. That was kind of where his ancestors were from, and that's where karate started. Couple other personal accomplishments that are related to Karate Canada and my role as a coach. In 2014, I started the para karate program for Canada with one of our Shintani athletes. And then in 2016, Canada had its first ever world gold medal in Linz, Austria. And in fact, in that year, it was gold and silver results for the para athletes. So it was real incredible.
That's awesome.
And then another related one to being a coach was in 2019. It was another first for karate in Canada. I was recognized with the Excellence in Coaching Award from the Petro-Canada Sport Leadership Conference, along with many elite coaches from across all sports, Olympic sports, national sports for Canada. Now, my proudest moment and proudest accomplishment in karate is our South Calgary Karate Club and all of the members that belong to it. The club was established in 1994, and we've compiled probably, over 100 Dan gradings since the inception. It is truly our biggest accomplishment, and all of this is shared with my husband, Darren, and my family. Darren started karate in 1990, and together we built our organization and contributed to the SWKKF over the decades. A lot of the milestones in our family belong to, or kind of go hand in hand with the karate, and that are eldest daughter was born like the month that we started our club in 94. And then our second daughter was born. She was supposed to be born after the tournament. She came before the tournament. So it was the very first tournament that we held in 1997. And then our third daughter came in 1999 when we hosted our first black belt grading for our club. So yeah, everything kind of went hand in hand. So I just have to figure out how old our kids are to know what the milestones of the club are.
Right. That's great. Anything else to add before I go on?
You know what? I think those are my proudest moments. There's so many other moments, and there'd be so many people to mention, but I think that those are my biggest accomplishments.
Absolutely. What was your first encounter with Hanshi Shintani?
So I first met Sensei Shintani or Hanshin Shintani in October 1986 in Edmonton. Sensei had come out for a week to do black belt gradings, workshops, and a tournament. The gymnasium at the university was packed with hundreds of people. And I remember Sensei would teach a kumite drill and then walk all the lines. And he would engage in every single pair, providing feedback individually to each group. And so you can imagine that it took a long time to walk down all the lines with over 100 people. And so all the time he's counting. So that meant well over 300 repetitions of each drill. So if you didn't learn it, you probably had a lot of bruises to say you tried. So that was, and then Sensei would always come out and we'd go out for dinner after the training, and everyone would kind of jockey for positions to have a seat near him at the restaurant. Of course, I always managed to get a good seat, and I was always like really engaged in listening to what he had to say. And there was very little sleep that week that Sensei would come, because the stories would go on to late into the evening.
Yeah. What was your impression of Hanshi Shintani?
So my first impression of Hanshi was awe. Sensei carried himself in a humble but imposing manner, and the whole gym would be busy with people kind of moving around and chatting, and Sensei would enter the gym and without announcement, and everything went respectfully quiet. It was incredible to watch, but it was even more incredible to be immersed in that dynamic environment.
What was your favorite memory of Sensei Shintani?
My favorite memory. So on the floor would probably be my Sandan grading, where I got to be Sensei Shintani's demonstration partner during the grading. And one of the drills was when he was teaching Skuliyuki and the Bunkai from the end of Kushanku. So keeping in mind, the gradings were not the same format as they are now. They were just whatever Sensei decided to do that day. And then he would grade you if he thought you were ready. So later in the grading, I was standing on the sidelines during Kumite, and Sensei came over and he asked me why I wasn't out there. And I said, well, Sensei, I'm 5 months pregnant, and so it's probably not a good idea to do Kumite. And he goes, well, why didn't you tell me this? And I said, well, Sensei, I wrote it on the form. And he goes, I don't read those things. So he just kind of chuckled. And so we had a chuckle, but yeah, that was my Sandan grading. So that was on the floor. And then off the floor would typically be the things that I remember is our conversations about family. And it really, really made me appreciate my family. And as a young person, it made an impact. So yeah, Sensei Shintani made an impact on me both on and off the floor.
How did Sensei Shintani make you feel?
Sensei was a great storyteller, but he was also a really good active listener. Even as a young adult, he made me feel as though my thoughts were valuable. His eagerness to show or to share his knowledge made you feel as you were just as important as some of the older or ranking members on the floor. So, he didn't just talk to the higher ranking members, he would talk to everybody in general. And that just made you feel important. Sensei was an honest person. And when I say that, I mean his words and his actions. They meant the same. So sometimes you'll have people that will give you lip service. They'll say this, and then their actions are going to be different. Sensei didn't do that. And, he said what he said, and the actions were commensurate. He said, for example, he said that you had good technique, it likely meant you did have good technique. He didn't say it to make you feel good. If your technique wasn't good, he would provide some feedback, but he wouldn't say that it was good if it wasn't honestly good. And that honesty demonstrated respect, and it was easy to respect and to reciprocate that respect.
Mm-hmm. What struck you most about Hanshi Shintani?
Hanshi Shintani was a survivor, but he wasn't a victim. And what I mean by that is his time in the internment camps could have soured many people, but instead he found sports, baseball, karate, in particular, where he excelled. And so he pushed himself. So, and that survivor mode, I think, is what kind of created Sensei. And that kind of struck me a lot about him. The other one was, I'm not sure if everybody knows, but he had a terrible vehicle accident, which would have killed many people. And I remember him wearing a tensor bandage that went like right up to the top of his arm. It wasn't one tensor bandage, it was about 4 tensor bandages. And he wore those tensor bandages for years and years. However, you would never be able to tell by the way he moved on the floor. It was so dynamic and so strong and powerful. And he never complained or made excuses, which is a tremendous attribute to his character.
What inspired you most about Sensei Shintani?
I think his character was very inspirational. On the floor, he would demonstrate incredible power and focus, and speed, and off the floor, a lot of grace and humility, and generally put those all together and you have respect. Respect that was freely given, and in return, it was truly appreciated. I think he earned the respect through the respect that he gave.
Mm-hmm. Was there a moment that made you say wow or aha, or was there a paradigm moment that you that sticks out with you?
I talked about it already a little bit about his power and speed, and it was just incredible to see. Like when I first met Sensei, he would have been just like a year or two older than I am now. And, I don't quite have that power and speed, but I remember how much he could demonstrate on the floor, and you would just feel it in your body when he would like throw techniques on the floor. I remember being near the back of the gym, and because his voice was so soft, he would often have a body mic, and then the mic would be on here. So of course, when he's throwing techniques, you'd hear this whoosh, whoosh, and on the speaker. So not only did you see the speed and power, but you heard it through an amplification of the speaker. So that was kind of really cool to hear that. So that's kind of a really kind of wow, that's awesome moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a favorite technique that Sensei showed you, something that you taught or still teach today?
Yeah, actually, so one of my favorites is Nagayashuki. And Sensei didn't use all the formal Wado definitions for techniques, but he taught all the principles that are captured in his teaching spirit. And I was about an orange or a green belt when I was first introduced to Nagayashuki for blocking kicks and getting off center. And this changed my kumite, and it became my favorite technique, especially for Gono-sen. I would draw the opponent in to throw a nice long maigeri, and then use Nagayashuki, typically principle of Noru, to score on my opponent. So that was one of my favorite ones. And then Darren and I really worked on that technique a lot. In fact, I remember Darren dislocating his finger and having to go to the hospital to get it fixed. because we'd been working on that. But we developed that both in karate and in Shindo with using variations of timing, distancing, and footwork. And we actually developed a set of kihons both for karate and for Shindo based on the principles of Nagas, Inas, and Noru. And I've taught this many, many times at clinics and at dojo visits across Canada over the years. I still remember when Sensei came out in about 1988, and he taught us how to use Shindo, and he taught us how to use Nagayashuki, like with the block blocks and the strike block on the leg. And in fact, in the last few gradings that I've been asked to teach the advanced techniques, I've borrowed that principle straight out of Chobote, the ending of Chobote, and put it into karate and taught those 4 moves and for my advanced techniques. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is the one thing about Hanshi Shintani that you think that he should be remembered for?
I think Hanshi Shintani brought many, many people together from various backgrounds. And in today's terms, we call that diversity and inclusion. And I believe that he would be very happy to see that his legacy of bringing people together from diverse backgrounds has led to this very much a modern day inclusion and diversity within the organization.
What would you like to say to students that have never had the opportunity to meet Hanshi Shintani?
For those who have never met Hanshi Shintani, everyone takes their own journey in karate. It may be a few months, a few years, or several decades. And this also means different starting places, different influences. And my influence happened to be from Sensei Shintani. But it's going to be different from my journey versus yours or Sensei Neil's and other people who have been influenced from Sensei Shintani. But I think people should not be forlorn because they didn't meet Hanshi Shintani, because his legacy is transmitted through those who trained with him. And then in turn, hopefully the next generation will have those ties to those legacy pieces from Hanshi Shintani. For those who are in positions of influence, I think it's very paramount that we represent a person who Sensei Shintani would have respected, and to ensure that our actions are humble and respectful to those who look up to us. Important things that I think we have to make sure that we as people who learn from Hanshi Shintani is to make sure that we don't abuse or take advantage of our positions of leadership, so that we can continue that legacy. So, for those coming up the rank, we have to seek to represent those characteristics of Hanshi Shintani.
Very good. Can you describe Hanshi Shintani in one sentence?
Wow, one sentence.
Nobody's been able to yet. No, just kidding.
Okay, does it have to be grammatically correct?
Absolutely not.
Good. So Hanshi Shintani sought to provide an organization to bring people together, to learn karate, to become their best, and to share with those who follow. And that would make him proud.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about Hanshi Shintani?
I want to talk about Hanshi Shintani's wardrobe. And so he will always be remembered for his gi and his obi that he wore on the floor. Okay. But off the floor, Sensei wore black pants, a white short sleeve dress shirt, and a black tie, and a very traditional Japanese way. But in 1991, Sensei went out of his comfort zone. He was, he was kind of coerced, But he went outside his comfort zone and he attended a celebration in Edmonton wearing a tuxedo. So I guess he still stayed traditional to the black and white, but dressed up in a tuxedo with a bow tie, and came to this party, and it was very formal. It was absolutely incredible evening, and he had the most amazing smile the whole entire evening. And I remember he had his katana, and it was actually my katana, which is up there. And he sliced through a celebration cake that we had for the evening, and it was an amazing event that night. Another story I remember that's a little more personal is I remember being a blue belt, and I was competing out at a tournament in Edson, and I was doing Taisei, and I thought I was doing the best kata ever. And I remember doing this amazing kata and wearing my medal, and Sensei goes like this. He goes, "Come on up here." And so I go up on the stage and I sit down and I chat, and he gives me feedback that I had a really good kata. But the ki was, Sensei chuckled, unexpected. And many of you who know me, you'll agree that I have
a high voice,
a very high voice, and but it has intensity. And so yeah, there was a little chuckle there from Sensei from that, and yeah, it was okay. It's fired a conversation afterwards about his family and my family, and that's that on the floor, off the floor conversations that we would often have.
That's a great story. Is there anything that you have for closing comments? Anything that you want to add that we haven't touched in our questions? It's an absolute open floor for you.
I think that the Shintani organization should be celebrated for the roots and the traditions that lead back to Hanshi Shintani. And I am grateful that I joined this organization of karate.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for your time. I think people are going to get a lot out of this interview. Sensei Bruce and I just have a blast talking to everybody and hearing everybody's stories based on the same questions.
I think it was really fun. I enjoyed it. And I thank you and Sensei Bruce for taking on this this project. I think it's very important, and as a legacy piece, and it's definitely a tribute to Sensei Shintani and his organization.
That's great. And one thing that you haven't mentioned, so I'll mention it here. Sensei Heather is one of the Senate members for the Shintani Wanokai Karate Federation, and plays a very, very important role and keeps us business minded as well, which is, you know, one of those things that you have to do when you're looking after a big organization like this. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you again.
Thank you for your time, Sensei Heather.
Thank you.